The restaurant was alive with chatter and laughter, but in the far corner one table sat in silence. A woman barely in her 20s stared down at her half-eaten meal, tears streaking the corners of her makeup. Her date sat across from her, scrolling through his phone, sighing loudly every few minutes, as if her sadness was an inconvenience, not a wound. "You can at least pretend to care," she whispered, but he didn't even look up. Only when the waiter passed by did he mutter loud enough for others to hear, "She's just emotional, don't mind her." The waiter froze tray in hand, his eyes flicking toward the girl who looked like she was trying to disappear into her seat. He'd seen that look before, the look of someone breaking quietly in public, while pretending to be fine. He set the tray down on a nearby table and approached slowly. "Ma'am, would you like anything else?" She shook her head quickly, wiping her cheeks. "No, thank you, I'm fine." Her voice trembled, and he leaned closer, lowering, his voice so only she could hear. "No, you're not fine, and you don't deserve this." Her eyes snapped up, startled. The words landed heavier than she expected. Her date frowned. "What did you just say to her?" The waiter turned his gaze on him, calm but firm. "I said she deserves better than being treated like a burden in front of strangers." The air went still. The boyfriend stood his chair, scraping the floor, but before he could speak, the woman whispered, "That's enough." She took a breath, stood slowly, and for the first time her voice didn't shake. "I'm done." She grabbed her purse, her steps unsteady but certain. As she walked out, the waiter followed her to the door, stopping just before she left. He smiled gently. "You'd be surprised how many people forget their worth till someone reminds them." She met his eyes, her tears replaced with something steadier. "Thank you," she whispered. The rain had already begun by the time she stepped outside, cold drops slipping down her cheeks, mixing with the last of her tears. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking aimlessly through the quiet streets, replaying his words in her head. "You don't deserve this," simple words yet. They echoed louder than anything her boyfriend had said in months. She stopped under a dim streetlight, letting the truth settle heavy and strange. She had spent so long shrinking herself to fit beside someone who only saw her when it suited him. The waiter, a stranger, had seen more of her pain in 5 seconds than her boyfriend ever had. By the time she reached her apartment, her phone buzzed with messages, each one from the man she had left at that table. "You're overreacting. Come back so we can talk. Don't embarrass me." She stared at the screen for a long time, then turned it off, setting it face down on the counter. For the first time in months, the silence felt like peace. The next morning, sunlight cut through her curtains. She got dressed for work, her movements slow but sure. When she passed the mirror, she stopped staring at her reflection. Her eyes still looked tired, but there was something new there too, a quiet defiance. She smiled to herself, softly, whispering, "He was right. I don't deserve that." On her way to work, she passed by the same restaurant. The waiter was inside, balancing plates with the same calm focus. She hesitated at the door, debating if she should go in before quietly stepping inside. He looked up, his expression flickering with surprise before softening into that same gentle smile from the night before. "Didn't think I'd see you again," he said, wiping his hands. She shrugged, a small nervous laugh escaping. "I guess I just wanted to say thank you for last night." His eyes warmed. "You don't owe me thanks. You just needed," reminding of what was already true. She smiled, then really smiled, the kind that reaches the eyes. For the first time, she realized how light it felt to simply be seen. Days passed, and she found herself returning to that same restaurant again and again, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to sit by the window. The waiter always seemed to notice her before she spoke, always offering a quiet smile or a warm nod. He never pried, never asked what happened after that night, but there was something in his eyes that said he understood more than he let on. One afternoon she stayed after the lunch rush, the place empty except for him wiping down tables. She hesitated, then said softly, "You know that night you told me I didn't deserve what was happening? I haven't stopped thinking about it." He looked up, setting the cloth aside. "I didn't say anything special. I just said what anyone should." She shook her head. "No one else ever did." He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "You'd be surprised." How many people stay quiet when they see someone breaking because they think kindness is interfering? She smiled faintly. Maybe they should interfere more. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, how she'd once dreamed of being a writer, how he worked 2 jobs to take care of his younger brother. They laughed easily, the heaviness between them slowly turning into something warm, something alive. By the time she left, it was dark again, but this time she wasn't alone in the world. The next few weeks turned into something she hadn't expected. She started writing again, her stories filled with pieces of her own healing words that felt like breathing. She'd stop by the restaurant to share a page or 2 with him, and he'd listen, his eyes bright with pride. "That's good," he'd say every time. "Keep going. You owe it to yourself to finish this one evening." As the city lights flickered outside, he handed her a napkin with a few words scrawled in messy ink. "You didn't deserve the pain, but you do deserve everything beautiful that comes after it." Her chest tightened around a smile that felt like sunlight finally breaking through the clouds. Months later, the restaurant buzzed again, but this time it wasn't the same girl, sitting quietly in the corner. It was her standing at the front by the window. A small crowd gathered around a local magazine had chosen her story about healing and kindness for their feature issue, and the launch party was being held right there. In the place where it all began, she stood holding her first printed copy, the cover showing the title, "You Don't Deserve This, But You Deserve Better." Her hands trembled, but her smile didn't. When she spotted him across the room wiping his hands on his apron, she laughed softly, motioning for him to come closer. When he reached her, she held out the book. "You're in it, you know." He raised an eyebrow. "Me?" She nodded. "You said something that changed everything, and I wrote it down. Because I never want to forget what a single kind word can do." He looked at her for a moment, pride softening his features before saying quietly, "I didn't fix you. You did that yourself." She shook her head, smiling through tears. "Maybe. But I might never have started if you hadn't reminded me who I was." The guests clapped as the owner raised a toast, but she hardly heard any of it. Her gaze stayed on him, the man who had once whispered the words that rebuilt her from the inside out. As the evening faded, she stepped outside the cool air, brushing her face, and looked up at the stars, her heart full of something she hadn't felt in years: peace. She realized that sometimes the greatest miracles aren't loud or grand. They're small moments when a stranger sees you when you've forgotten to see yourself. She smiled, whispering to the night, "Thank you for stopping that night, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. If this story moved you, share it, so others never forget that one selfless act can rewrite a destiny in ways no one sees coming."